And Michael tells him that building the wall is... Building the wall? He's building himself a new son. A new son! Oh my god.
Flight 815 crash landed, but where? There's weird jungle noises and a polar bear. What the fuck is going on over there? Helen
And Alex
will guide you through. If you've seen Lost 20 times,
or if you're brand new,
welcome to our show. It's
Dharma Fish Biscuits. Hello and welcome to Dharma Fish Biscuits, your new favourite Lost podcast.
We're your hosts, Helen and Alex. We're going episode by episode, spoiler free, bringing you all the hot takes no one ever asked for.
We are on Instagram at Dharma Fish Biscuits Pod. We are on TikTok at Dharma Fish Biscuits. You can email us on dharmafishbiscuitspod@gmail.com.
We also have a Patreon. It's free. At patreon.com/dharmafishbiscuits. You can join it for free.
Free.
We share the jingles there, we put some bonus material, outtakes there, and of course, the spoilery version of the show.
Ooh. Yes, Helen and I have both seen the full show, so while this main podcast feed is a safe space for newcomers, we will not be talking about future plot points. However, during our discussion, sometimes we do talk about future plot points, so the spoilery edit on Patreon is where you can find our full conversation, where we talk about some things in the context of all 6 seasons.
Instead of going beat by beat, we aim to focus our discussion on the character the episode centres around. First in flashbacks, then on the island, and then we circle back to any other plot lines and a miscellanea.
This week, we've got our first Michael/Walt episode.
I went Michael and Walt pairing.
Michael and Walt.
Yeah.
Season 1, episode 14, special.
You could make the case for it being solely a Michael episode in the same way as for Hearts and Minds, you could make the case for it being solely a Boone episode, but the main thing that I think speaks against that is the title of the episode, Special, which is clearly about Walt.
Yes. Also, I think the point I made about Hearts and Minds was that you could consider it a Boone episode because Boone is in every flashback and we never see Shannon alone, whereas in this one, we do get a flashback of Walt without Michael.
That's true, yeah.
And we also get flashbacks of Michael without Walt. So
very true.
And I also think the flashback speaks more to the relationship as opposed to like the specific character's journey. It's about the relationship between the two of them.
Let's get into it.
Okay, so flashbacks. Michael and...
Shaven Michael is unsettling. Is my first up top thought. He looks so weird in that first flashback with his like
little beanie hat and earring,
and he's shaven, and obviously it's the same actor, they're just trying to make him look younger, but it looks so uncanny and off in a really unsettling way.
Yeah, I think they've done the same thing we talked about them doing with Jack in his first flashback, which is we need to make this character look younger, put him in a hoodie.
Yeah, hoodie Jack from my nightmares. Another point that I wanted to make was that the chemistry between Michael and Susan, or between those two actors, it's never there. They never make a convincing couple. You never believe that they even like each other a little bit, let alone are like passionately in love.
Okay, let's get into Susan, because I actually do believe Michael's side of the relationship in that maybe he's just really excited about having a son, but he's giving real Labrador Golden Retriever energy and seems very happy and excited about this life. And Susan is just like, I simply could not care less. It's really hard to talk about female characters when to try and hold two things in your mind of both female characters are allowed to be imperfect people, but also this is written by largely a group of men who, as we've talked about quite a lot with the show, are not very sympathetic at all to their female characters. So it's like, how is Susan just a character who's like, yeah, she's a bitch and that's her character and it's fine? Or is this misogynistic writers have written a woman who's a bitch because women are bitches?
Never forget, Lost is a feminist text. Just kidding, this show hates women. Yeah, I think there's definitely, like you say, you have to hold both sides of that. And I think for me, a large part of the problem is the way that a lot of the Lost fan community doesn't want to see that whole, like, complexity. They're just like, Susan's a bitch. She's the worst character. And it's like, yeah, no, she is. Absolutely. She's one of the only characters on the whole show who is just a villain through and through. She has no redeeming qualities. She makes the worst, most, like, heartless, cruel decisions at every possible turn. She is a horrible person. Absolutely agree. But the fact that you can have a show like this where characters are known for their depth and complexity and moral grayness and their, like, ability to both make terrible decisions at one time and great decisions at another time, to have a character like Susan is a failure of the writing to portray, like, a well-rounded, realistic human being.
Yeah.
So that is absolutely, I agree with you on that overall point, and we can still talk about that Susan's a fucking bitch.
Yeah, two things can be true. It's also interesting to, like, pair her with Michael, who I think Michael is the one that possibly the most out of any character. They are seemingly intentionally flipping a stereotype and taking a stereotype and being like, we're doing the opposite of that thing. And, oh, you think he's a deadbeat dad? He's not. And he's paired with the woman who is, like, exactly the stereotype, exactly what you think. Oh, you think this woman's a bitch? She's a bitch.
If I was to say anything in defense of the writing of Susan, she's not at least a stereotype of, like, a black woman. She's not like the angry black woman.
That's true. She's very calm.
It is a shame, like you say, that, you know, in this episode, which is doing so much for Michael's character, gives us this whole depth and sympathy for him that we've never had access to before. And we're like, oh, his ex. Yeah, she fucking sucks. But what did you make of their chemistry or lack thereof, or their believability as a couple?
So as I say, I believe Michael loves this woman and wants to, like, begin a life with her and start a family. I don't know why. I don't think we get any indication of how long they've been together, because she is giving absolutely nothing, and I don't know if I believe that they would still be in this relationship when she is giving nothing.
Yeah, so I mean, she's heavily pregnant at that point, maybe 8 months. So are you thinking that, like, maybe they've only been together for like a year or something, and at this point she's like, well, shit, I guess I better stick with it?
I don't know if this is obvious and it's being hinted at that this is her plan all along, because she says she doesn't want to get married. She wants him to have her last name. And not necessarily it's her plan to, like, dump Michael, but I wonder if she got
had
partway
one
through
eye on the escape door.
Yeah, she's partway through the pregnancy and is like, I don't think this relationship is lasting, but at least I'm going to get my son out of it. So we're going to hang on until such point as me and my son can get out and be done.
Jesus, that's a dark take. Because I definitely thought about the marriage thing, the way that when she is breaking up with Michael, we're going to get there, but she says, we're not married.
She says we're not even married.
As that's one of the reasons why the court would side with her in terms of custody.
Yeah.
And we know that the reason they're not married is because she doesn't want to get married. And so it makes it just like this it's doubling down on the pain that she's causing him, because they're not married, but that was her choice.
Her choice.
I definitely never thought of it as being that she had one foot out the door, but when you put it like that, maybe.
Yeah, I think I definitely get the impression one foot out the door, even if maybe not necessarily planning this whole thing, but I do think she always
was like,
had in the back of her
myself,
mind. Yes, I'm going to look after myself. I'm going to make
happens.
sure that whatever happens with this relationship, me and my son are together and fine. I'm not going to get married because I don't want to be too embroiled in Michael. I want him to have my last name. So
sign myself up to Michael's future.
Yeah.
God, that's really depressing, because obviously they're having that conversation even in the first flashback about how much the crib costs. And he's saying, oh, yeah, but soon you'll be a hotshot lawyer and I'll do some construction work until my art takes off. So already there's the dynamic of, like, she's on her way into a stable, well-paying job.
Yes.
He's making ends meet. And she does seem like a very ambitious and focused, career focused person. So maybe even then she was like, oh, he has these dreams of becoming an artist. He doesn't seem to be able to make it work. He's working construction on the side. Like, this isn't really the life that I saw for myself.
I don't know if we know how they met. I can't remember if we get any more detail about their backstory, but it does make me wonder if perhaps they met at a time when she was a bit more, when she wasn't quite as far in her career.
She's in law school in the first flashback, so they probably met as students, I would guess.
Yeah, so I wonder if they met when they were, it's this tale as old as time, of they both meet when they're sort of young, carefree, doing whatever. And then a couple of years later, she's in law school, she's working to become a lawyer, and she's like, oh, my boyfriend is still... he's still just doing handyman jobs and thinking he's going to be an artist and not earning a lot of money, but I can...
And now I'm heavily pregnant.
Yeah, and like she can see where her life is going and where his life is going, and she doesn't want them to be aligned.
And I can buy all of that, and I can even think that sounds fine, and like, people just make choices based on where they're at in their life, and maybe it was a sensible choice, but it does not excuse what comes later.
Yes.
Shall we move on to flashback 2?
Yeah, so the next one is when Walt is a baby. So this is when they're breaking up. Walt is a baby, and Susan says that she's been offered a job in Amsterdam, and Michael is saying, you can't go, you can't take my boy, you're not taking him, and she's already taken the job.
I found this scene completely infuriating. First of all, you can't just kidnap your child and move to another country.
Yeah.
Like, why couldn't Michael just move to Amsterdam with them? I mean, I know that she's trying to leave him and get away from him. She doesn't want to bring him. I get that. But, like, you have to at least ask him. You have to at least, like, make it an option.
I don't know what the situation was like in 2004, but to move to another country, there's a lot of visa processes. And as she says, if they're not married, then a green card marriage is not an option. She's not going to want to get married to him to have him go over.
Yeah, that's true. His immigration status in Europe would be difficult, yeah. And the way that she also in this scene is like trying to portray herself as the good guy, the one who's looking out for Walt's interests. She's taking Walt away from his father.
Yeah.
It's so cruel. It's so unthinkable. In the next one, this is when he calls her, yes?
Yeah, he calls her from the payphone.
And now she's finally ready to break up, now that she's actually fully in a relationship with someone else and has isolated Michael from his son for months at this point, I guess. Why couldn't she at least have ended the relationship? Like, that would have been one act of minor kindness, would be to end the relationship when she moved away. Just clean break.
Or to, like, not have Brian in the background when
Jesus
she's on the phone.
Christ, Brian. Oh, who are you talking to?
I did laugh at him being like, let me talk to him. He's 21 months old. He doesn't use the phone.
He's on the phone with her. He just wants to talk to his son. He wants to have the one kind of contact that is actually possible for him. For Walt to be able to hear his voice. For him to be able to say anything to Walt. And she won't let him. And then in the next one, when she comes to see him in the hospital, he's like, oh, did you bring Walt? No, he's at home. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah.
He's essentially doesn't know his dad at all. He's basically never met him. I mean, he doesn't remember being a baby, so...
Anyway, he says he's coming to Amsterdam. And she's like, oh, don't come here. I'm not coming for you. I'm coming for Walt. Walks into the road and immediately gets knocked down by a car.
Rough times.
It is a really effective jump scare.
Yeah, it actually gets me every time.
So, yeah, should we go to the next one? When he's in the hospital, he's recovering, and he's drawing a little birthday card. Him and the nurse have this cute little conversation where she tells him this stupid joke. And then Susan shows up, and once again, trying to be a stone-cold bitch, and is like, I'm covering your medical costs. By the way, I'm marrying Brian.
Married to fucking Brian.
And he's adopting your son. Can someone adopt a child if the parent is still alive and wants to parent their child?
Yeah, and even in a case where the biological parent is less able to look after their child, maybe isn't like in a place to fully take on that responsibility, they would normally be fostered
yeah.
for quite a long time before anyone is allowed to adopt them. I'm guessing, my assumption is that in order for this adoption process to happen, Michael would have had to legally waive his fatherhood. And I guess that's what Susan is counting on making him do. And she really She really presses the button when she talks about the way that Michael wants to maintain a relationship with Walt and says, "Is it really for him or is it for you?" It's so cruel. It's so
Awful.
heartless.
Awful stuff.
And you know what? It is for Michael. He has a son. He wants to be with his son. He wants to have a relationship with his son. That's not an unreasonable thing. And it's also for Walt,
I was going to
because
say,
Walt
it's for both of
deserves
them.
that.
Yeah. It's not like he is using Walt just for his own emotional gain. Like, he's wanting to be there for Walt
And he's not a person who's going to create damage in Walt's life. He's not abusive. He's not dangerous. He's just not good enough for bitch ass Susan.
This is what I mean, and I'm like, I feel as though if Michael were to actually fight this, there's absolutely no way that Brian would be able to adopt Walt.
I guess it's quite intimidating for Michael that Susan is a lawyer, so he knows that whatever legal routes he pursues, she's going to be so well equipped to represent herself.
And also, he is like he says, he's out of work for so long now because he's got his broken leg ? Or both broken legs. And so he says he won't be able to work for months, so he's not going to have any money. And I think you're right that he is just... That's why I say if he were to fight it, I think he would win, but it's just not feasible for him to do it because he won't be able to pay the costs associated with it, which is quite devastating, really.
Next flashback, we finally meet the man himself, Brian Porter.
Yeah, well, we meet all the men themselves. Brian Porter, we meet Walt, no longer a baby.
You're calling a 10-year-old boy a man.
So Susan is not feeling well in some sort of unspecified way. And Brian is saying, "Oh, take a nap." And Walt's like, "Look at my homework. Why aren't you looking at my homework? You're not looking." And then suddenly a bird flies into the window.
The very same bird that Walt was looking at in his book.
Well, so here are my thoughts. I love the concept of this episode, and I love the idea of Walt being special, and I love the fact that we've seeded it through the show so far. So in case people have forgotten, we've had... What have we had? Michael says, "I will look for Vincent when it stops raining," and it immediately stops raining.
He possibly materialized a polar bear.
He's reading the comic book with the polar bear. Suddenly there's a polar bear, which happens again in this episode. He's playing backgammon with Hurley, and he gets all the dice rolls roll exactly what wants him to be. But then in this episode, it feels like we get this one more scene of him looking at his homework about birds. No one is listening to him, and suddenly a bird flies into the window. And that's sort of all we get. And then the next time is just Brian saying to Michael,
"This kid's fucked up.
There's something about him. Things keep happening." And I just wish we had a little bit more than that.
You wanted one
scene.
more example.
I wanted one more thing. Because as it is, it feels a lot of... I wish the show did more showing, not telling. Because we've done really well up till now of seeding it subtly. And I wish there was one more thing. Or at least something on the island to help us connect those things we've seen in past episodes.
I suppose by making it only the one example that we get to see with the bird, it also leaves the door open for us as viewers to think, well, is Brian just talking shit, or is there really something about Walt? Because all the other things can be explained. You know, the dice, well, he was just lucky.
Yeah.
The weather on the island's unpredictable. The polar bear, maybe there's another reason that it's there.
Yeah.
And the bird thing, really strange and spooky and uncanny. But is that in itself a reason to say, oh, weird shit keeps happening around this kid? No, we can still have the door open for us thinking, oh, Brian's just an asshole who wants to abandon his adopted son.
Yeah, this is all very true. But I don't know, I compare it to Raised by Another, the Claire episode, which in my opinion did this perfectly. Like, added in a paranormal element perfectly, where we were a bit like, is this real? Is this guy lying? But then we aren't convinced necessarily that he's being genuine. But then at the end we sort of realise that, oh, but maybe he did see all of this happening. And maybe
there is something that just simply can't make sense unless he does. Yeah.
Whereas this one feels a bit more like we've had... Because I guess the other thing is that the things Walt has done on the island that we've seen in previous episodes are never explicitly addressed. So it does sort of rely on the audience remembering those things. that at the time were not remarked upon, and being like, oh, this thing 10 episodes ago happened that was odd. Maybe that's related to this thing. I just wish there was something.
They give us more on the island in this episode, of course. They give us the knife thing when Locke tells him to picture
That's true.
the knife.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
Boone is like, whoa. And they also, like you said, do a repeat of the polar bear. So I think they're doing enough to kind of remind us or like lead us along that path.
Yeah, I guess you're right. And as I say, I like it. I like it as a plot point. I just wish it had been introduced a little bit nicer in this episode for me personally.
All right, you're allowed.
When Walt was studying his book, he said, oh, we're reading about birds of Australia. We're in Australia. We should be studying birds of Egypt or something.
Craziest shit Walt's ever said. Of course you should study the birds of the country that you live in, so that when you're walking around you can be like, that's one of them.
That is true. But also, is this our first mention of Egypt on the show? Which is going to become a bit more, I'd say, like, thematically relevant.
I like that. That's a really good call. I did not think about that at all, but yeah, Egypt mentioned. Klaxon. Brian is on Veronica Mars.
Is he?
Yeah.
Who is he?
He's the father, Richard Casablancas.
Oh my god. Brian Porter, Richard Casablancas. Who'd have thunk it?
Interesting.
Brian turns up at Michael's apartment.
Susan's
and
dead.
is like, oh hey, Susan's dead.
Brian sucks.
This is crazy. She died, and she died yesterday. So, like, you're telling me that your wife dies, and the next day you're flying from Australia to New York?
He's here to ask Michael to be a father again, which Michael hasn't been and hasn't been allowed to be for 8 years.
Yeah, and has this convoluted scheme of saying, Susan wanted you to look after him, and Michael's like, I met Susan, she didn't want that at all. I saw through
that immediately. I found it really heartbreaking how Michael goes to bat for Walt, for him to be able to keep the only father he knows. I mean, talk about not doing this out of his own self-interest. All he's thinking about here is Walt and how unstabilizing it will be for Walt to lose the only parent figure that he's grown up with now that his mum has died. Everything that we see in the rest of the flashbacks that Michael does, he makes so many sort of sacrifices for Walt's best interest. And it's, like I said, it gives Michael's character this whole new depth, and we see this whole other side of him that we would never have been able to imagine, really. Brian's like, do you know the tweet about what if the kid has bad vibes?
I do not know that tweet.
Here's a famous tweet from December 2018 from the user Sadiq. Why do we bash deadbeat dads for not being there for their kids, but we never question if the kid has bad vibes or if they're just unpleasant to be around? Quoth Brian Porter, 2004.
So this is when they have the conversation where Brian's like, things just happen around him. He's different. And this is why he doesn't want to parent him. Okay, so then final flashback, we get to Australia. Michael arrives at the house, and Brian isn't there. And I was a bit like, surely Brian should be there.
Brian's having a mini break in New York, I guess.
When he sees Walt, and Walt's like,
Who are you?
Who are you?
I don't know. Michael does a good job of selling it, of being like, Brian really loves you, and he really wanted to keep you, but it's not up to him. It's up to me. It's my choice. Talk about taking the hit to protect poor baby little Walt.
Yeah, and Brian. Like,
well, yeah, he protects Brian, but it's in order to protect Walt and to protect him from being hurt. I don't think he gives a shit about Brian. I think he just doesn't want to cause that kind of pain to Walt.
No. Well, that's interesting, because I'm going to contrast this with something later in the episode, where, like, here, Michael is very much like, I am the bad guy in this situation. Everyone else is great.
Yeah. He's protecting Susan's memory as well, for Walt's sake.
Yeah, protecting Susan's memory, and he wants Walt to still have a good relationship with Brian, or at least think well of Brian, and is like, I'm happy for you to hate me and think that I am an absolute asshole. I did really enjoy the pettiness of being like, oh, your dog? Brian said you could have the dog.
Fuck Brian, he's your dog now.
And thank God, what would we do without Vincent?
Who's a good protagonist? He's got a tail and he's wagging it. Don't try to deny the significance of the second character we meet, Vincent. And that is the flashbacks. Oh, let's jump back to the present. Back to the island.
So on the island, we have an eye shot. Ding, ding, ding. Maybe we should have been counting from the beginning.
I loved the little exchange between Michael and Jack where Michael was like, hey, you listened to your old man when you were 10, right? And Jack's like, the trauma descends. He's like,
Jack,
a little too
don't
much.
send me into another flashback.
That was a lovely little callback.
I did laugh at this like parade of people that walk past Michael while he's looking for Walt. Charlie comes and he's like, have you seen Claire's bags? No, bye. And then he walks away and then Jack comes along and it's like, hello. Hurley comes and tells them that they're having a new golf tournament, playing for the last of the deodorant sticks. Here is a side effect of the island that I had not considered, that eventually everyone's going to run out of deodorant.
Quite quickly, as it turned out.
Yeah, that's quite surprising to me.
I feel like I have the same deodorant for
They've been there,
months.
what, like 2 weeks? Yeah, 2 or 3 weeks. And presumably some, like, there's also some dead people. They presumably had
extra
deodorant.
deodorant.
I feel like maybe 3 weeks into the plane crash, we don't quite have to be running out of deodorant yet.
It's important that we're here to examine these matters.
So this is day 26 to 27 on the island. So we are 4 weeks in now.
Cool. Yeah, they should all still have deodorant. Like, the last deodorant stick presumably means, like, the last extra deodorant stick. So some people still have deodorant. That's fine. Glad we sorted this out. Yeah, Hurley says about Michael to Jack, he really hates being a dad, doesn't he? And Jack's like, oh, it's just hard. And then Hurley watches him walk away and he goes, no, he hates it.
Because I guess now we know from looking at these flashbacks, he was maybe a dad for, how old would you say Walt was when we see him as a baby? In the month, less than a year old? And that's probably like the most dadding he's done. And now suddenly it's like, here's a 10-year-old boy.
I think it's so complicated emotionally for Michael because it is his son and he did want to be a father. He wasn't permitted to be the father. And now he's suddenly expected to jump into this fatherhood with no... Like he says later on in the episode about Walt, he says, you know, Locke wants me to stop treating him like a child. Well, I missed his whole childhood. He doesn't know how to treat Walt because he hasn't been there for his whole development from like a baby to the little person that he is now. And that's on top of just not having parenting skills and experience. Michael really needs like a parenting mentor on the island. There has to be someone. They don't have to necessarily be a parent themselves, but someone who has had that kind of experience with young people and children who could just like be a support to him.
Michael is the only parent on the island, isn't he? As far as we know. No one else has kids. And we don't even see anyone interacting with kids in their flashbacks. So these are like a group of adults who I guess are only used to socializing with adults.
It's really unusual for that many people in that like age span that they're in to all not have children. Never thought of that before.
Okay, next scene when Locke is teaching Walt to throw his
Yeah,
knives.
did you notice Vincent's little worried face?
Vincent
He's like,
watching him.
oh no, something
Yeah.
bad's gonna happen. Love you, Vincent.
Yeah, Locke, so as you talked about earlier, this is when Locke tells him to visualize the knot in the tree. And then Walt throws it perfectly.
Ooh. Spooky.
And then Michael comes in and is like, Walt, go back to camp. And Michael starts yelling at Locke while Boone is there. And what does this mean when we have all three of them
Jesus
together?
Christ. 3 characters in a scene. You know what that means. It's time for Fuck, Marry, or Kill. Fuck, Marry, or Kill. Boone in this episode, I know it was a while ago he got booped and gooped, but he still seems to be in some kind of trance state.
He's connected to the island now, Helen.
Is that what it is? He's going around looking like a fucking zombie, dead-eyed, you know, like a little attack dog for Locke. He makes me so uncomfortable. definitely killing Boone based on this episode. No,
Aw.
absolutely no question in my mind. And if you say you're gonna fuck him, then I have a problem with that.
Oh, but I might.
Marry Michael.
Yes, I'm definitely marrying Michael. Michael's proved himself to be great marriage material.
Shaglock? I don't want a Shaglock, but I think I will.
No, I'm sorry. Sorry, Locke. He's being killed. Not for any personality-based reasons, purely for aesthetic reasons.
Can you really imagine having sex with that dead-eyed zombie-ass Boone?
Yeah.
Right then, that's that segment over.
Michael and Locke are yelling at each other. Boone tackles him. Michael's threatening to stab Locke.
The way that like Boone tackles him, oh my god, Boone just makes me so uncomfortable this whole episode. It's like he's a mechanical robot or something. it's like I sense that Locke is under attack. Defend mode. And he's so pathetic. Oh, he makes me sick.
I honestly do just think it's the after effects of his little goopy trip.
But how long does the goop effects last?
So I assumed it was like as soon as he saw that Shannon was not really dead, he was out of the hallucinogenic state. But what it's done is it's unlocked something in his mind to be like, holy shit, I don't have to be obsessed with Shannon.
Okay, you think like how people usually talk about ayahuasca, that it gives you access to this like new way of looking at the world. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
I think it's this thing that it's given him a different view of his relationship with Shannon. And I think it also helped him not just reassess his relationship with Shannon, but also helped him to see how important the island itself was. Like it unlocked this importance of the island for him. And it's like, Locke knew this all along, and Locke was able to help me see it. Therefore, Locke is the king.
Yeah. So then it gives him a reason to think like Locke is mystical, Locke knows best, I must follow Locke and protect him. So what you're saying is he's now locked in.
We're halfway through the podcast. We talk a lot, we know. Why not take this time to write a review? It helps more people find the show. Or pop us a little email, or simply tell a friend. We're gonna need some listeners if we're to make it from the pilot to the end.
Later on, of course, Shannon tries to sort of reconnect with him a little bit and was like, oh, these guys are gonna try and build a raft, like maybe we should help. And Boone just like shuts her down. He's given her the zombie dead-eye look, and it makes me so uncomfortable. I preferred it when they were shagging.
Yeah, he doesn't need anything to do with Shannon anymore, which includes talking to her.
The next thing that I have is Sun and Michael, besties. This is when Michael's just sitting alone and Sun comes over to talk to him, right? So she's got a good like sense of there's nobody else around. Jin is off fishing. The only person who might be nearby is Kate, and so she's like, sidle, are you okay? But I think this confirms their status as BFFs, so I'm happy about that.
Yeah, I think so. Good for them. That's when they have the whole conversation about not wanting Walt to grow up there.
It puts in perspective the stakes that Michael sees in relation to them being on the island or getting off the island.
Yeah.
And you can understand him, the idea of a 10-year-old growing up on this deserted tropical island where you're not part of any civilization, you're just surviving day to day. Of course he would have a worry about what would that mean for Walt's whole life and his future. And it gives us a really good, clear motivation for why he, later in the episode, gets on Operation Raft. Then the next thing I have is it's raft time, baby!
This is when Michael finds Saeed and Jack and is like, we need to leave. And I thought it was interesting to think about this in parallel / contrast to Boone, where we've talked quite a lot before in the past about how Boone is a secondary character that wants to be a protagonist in the island, which is sort of the same thing Michael is doing here, except they're taking different approaches to it, where Boone goes up to the A characters and is like, let me join in. Let me be part of this. I want to do it. Whereas Michael is like, these people are treating me as a secondary character. Well, fuck this. I'm making my own.
I'm making my own plot line.
I'm making myself the protagonist by making myself a raft, and I'm in charge of this, and this is my plot line.
Yeah, actually, if anything, it says something really positive about Michael's character, which is like, no one voted Jack president of the island. I don't have to wait for someone else to say, let's build a raft. I can be the one who says, let's build a raft, and I can take responsibility for recruiting other people to that mission, and not everyone has to do it, not everyone has to be for it, that's fine.
And that's the thing, when everyone is like, oh, this is a bad idea, it's all terrible, he's like, fine, I'm doing it.
I felt like it was real Stockholm syndrome, the way that it was Jack, Saeed and Shannon having that conversation with him, and the way that their response was all like, no, I don't know if that's a good idea. It was very much, and Shannon's like, well, I get really seasick. It's like, have you forgotten that you're all like on a deserted island where you're scraping by to survive every day, and there's a fucking monster in the jungle?
If you get seasick, Shannon, then you're not on the raft.
Shannon's only thinking of herself, but that's par for the course.
So then he goes and finds Walt, and Walt is reading his comic book, and there is a polar bear in the comic book, and there is also a picture of some sort of dome.
Yeah, like a dome or a shield with a city on top of it.
Yeah, which is curious.
He doesn't tell him he's building a raft. This is what I found really strange about this scene. He just says, like, you gotta help me, like, sort these planks and bamboo and get the seats. He never tells him what it's for, and that's, to me, that was like a clear mistake, because how can he expect Walt to feel at all motivated or interested if he doesn't know what they're doing?
This is true. But what else he says is, this is us taking control of our destiny. Thematic line. Just like to flag lines about destiny, fate, etc. So anyway, they start fishing through the wreckage and looking for things. Walt simply could not care less.
As soon as Walt sees Boone and Locke heading off into the jungle, he's like, I'm going to get some water now. And Locke really does seem to be trying to do the right thing and trying to abide by Michael's wishes. He takes it quite seriously. Here's a question about Locke, and peripherally about Boone, but mostly about Locke. In the episode Hearts and Minds, we heard them talking about Saeed, and Locke saying to Boone, we need him on our side. He's an important person. We don't want him as an enemy, kind of thing. Locke is doing some kind of taxonomy of everyone on the island. It's either are they important? Are they significant? Do they have pull among the other characters? We talked about this before in terms of Locke being like the spin doctor pulling the strings, and in terms of the leadership contests and like telling the leaders, oh, you should be a leader, and telling them how to be a leader. And now he's gotten to the point where he's like figuring out everyone else and being like, oh, they have this role and they could be useful to me in that way. Where do you think Michael fits in to Locke's great taxonomy of the cast of the island? He clearly has some level of sympathy for him, because if we think back to the scene with like the whistle that he whittled and used to get Vincent back before, and let Michael like take the win on that.
Yes. I think that Locke is sort of disregarding Michael. I don't think he has any strong feelings towards him, although I do wonder whether that might change when it comes to the raft building, because suddenly Michael is doing something that is taking initiative and also like a practical skill. Like building something out of wood is a very Locke-coded activity.
Yeah, I was thinking along the same lines. I was thinking if you were to ask Locke in this episode, he would probably say that Michael is weak, maybe emotional and impulsive. But I think that the raft is the kind of activity that would like raise Michael's status in Locke's eyes.
I agree.
Of course, Michael finds Walt with Locke and Boone again, and is really angry at him again. And they have this big fight. There's a point where Walt says to Michael, "You're not my father." And it sticks like a knife in the gut. Oh, it hurts. Especially when you think about what a fucking dick Brian Porter is.
I know.
And the way that he abandoned Walt for having bad vibes. And now Walt is like, "You're not my real father. Brian Porter is my real father."
Yeah, so I also wonder if this adds to the tension between Michael and Locke, because earlier in the episode, when Michael finds him teaching Walt how to throw the knives, Locke says to him, there's something different about him. As long as we're here, Walt should be allowed to realise his potential.
As soon as he says it, Michael's like, what did you say? And it
Yeah, that then immediately triggers Michael back to what Brian said to him. And so I think it's the fact that I wonder if there's a part of Michael that doesn't want to know that, because he knows that Brian identified something was different about him, and therefore it made him hate Walt and not want to be around him. So Michael's like, no, that can't possibly be true. Don't tell me that is true. But simultaneously, there's a second layer of, if Locke has identified this about Walt, then Locke is just tuned into something with Walt and has spent enough time around him to realise something about his character that Michael hasn't realised, and is just triggering him even further, that I don't know my son very well, and this random man has come in and figured out this thing that I don't even know about him.
That can definitely be true. I think my reading of it was more that it's like an unbiased second opinion. Locke has no previous knowledge of anything that might have happened that Brian might have known about. Two completely unrelated people have independently made this comment about Walt. Now it's given Michael something to be like, shit, maybe there is something here. Maybe I do need to start paying attention.
Yeah, so Michael throws the comic book in the fire, and we see the polar bear burning in the fire.
It's so sad. It makes me so sad. I mean, I just said that Locke would consider Michael to be emotional and impulsive, but of course, he's angry and he's been hurt by Walt's comment, and he's lashing out. That's the kind of thing that if he had any support in parenting on the island, he might be able to like stand up against, but he does that, and it hurts my feelings. I mean, you feel for both of them, because Michael has done so much to try and, like we said earlier, to try and protect Walt, protect his mum's memory, protect his relationship to Brian, to be the bad guy, and like take those hits for Walt's sake. So you feel for Michael in that moment when Walt says, "You're not my father," but then to destroy the one piece of sort of entertainment and like enjoyment that Walt had access to, and he was learning Spanish.
I wonder if this is also contributing to Michael's emotional responses to things, is the fact that it's weighing on him more and more that he has made himself the bad guy. And I assume in his mind, what he envisioned was that he would tell Walt it was his fault, but then they would go to New York, they would start to live a life, eventually they would get on and it would all be fine. And instead what's happened is they're crashed on a desert island, and his son wants nothing to do with him. And so it's playing on him more and more that the reason Walt hates me is partially because I have copped to this, and I've made the decisions to take the blame and let him blame me, but I didn't quite realize that I would be in this intense environment with him hating me.
And I think you get like a little hint of that at the end when he gives him the box of letters and postcards. It's like you say, maybe that's because it struck me as a bit odd at first that he waited this long to do it. But perhaps it's like you say, that he envisioned that being something that they would do together when the dust had settled a little bit, when his mum's death wasn't quite so fresh. Because obviously the first thing that Walt says is like, wait, my mum had all these years, why did she never give them to me? And you can't answer that. It's painful.
So this is what I was sort of referring to earlier when I was talking about like a little bit of emotional progress of an arc from Michael. At first, in the flashback, we see him being like, Brian's a great guy, he wanted you, your mum was great, we loved each other, and now I'm the bad guy and I'm taking you away. Whereas now on the island, he's deciding to be like, he's actually being a bit more truthful with Walt and saying like, yeah, your mum did have these, like and he's honest as well and truthful. We had a conversation a couple of episodes ago where Walt, is it when he was cleaning his teeth and he said the ocean water makes you thirsty, and Walt was like, why is that? And Michael's like, because I just said so, okay? But now he's actually listening to Walt and taking on board and opening up to him and allowing himself to be more vulnerable. And also being honest about the state of his mum and saying like, yeah, she did have these. I don't know why she didn't give them to you. And he does still he doesn't completely throw her under the bus because he says she didn't throw them away, so somewhere inside she wanted you to have them.
Yeah, he's still doing what he can to like protect her for Walt's sake.
Yeah, but isn't completely crucifying himself at the behest of Susan, and is saying, I did do. And it's interesting to think, I hadn't thought about what you said, where maybe he was gonna wait for the dust to settle before giving them to him, and I wonder if actually his plan might have been to just take them home and not tell him that he had sent them to Susan and that Susan had kept them, but instead be like, here's a thing I've had all these years, so that then he doesn't have to have these awkward conversations about why Susan kept them from Walt, and completely leave her out of the equation and just say, I wrote you some cards, and yeah, I didn't send them because I didn't want to.
Interesting. I also think, like, we shouldn't forget as well in the conversation about the box that the only reason Michael has them is because the nanny went out of her way to give them to him.
Yeah.
She says, there's something else you should have. I'm getting chills even talking about it, because it's like, Susan made no plans. Susan made no allowances for Walt to be aware of the box's existence, or Michael to be aware that Walt had never received those cards. It's only the nanny is looking out for Walt's interest in this. And just imagine being the nanny in that family, and over the course of, I don't know how many years they lived in Sydney, but like seeing these letters come and seeing Susan like tuck them away in the box and just being like, this shit's fucked. Okay, Walt is getting away from it all with Vincent. He's going off on a little walkabout.
But Vincent can hear something in the bushes.
Here's my question. Is Vincent running towards the polar bear? Because he runs off and Walt follows him, and that's where they have their interaction with the polar bear.
Well, Walt doesn't find him. I fully read it that Vincent could hear something coming and is like, fuck this, I'm getting out of here. And then Vincent runs away. But then, like, Walt tries to find him, but obviously he can run less fast than a dog can, so he doesn't know exactly where Vincent's gone, so he's just stumbling through the jungle.
And polar bears can run real fucking fast, I'm guessing. I watched the episode twice, as I always do, and there was quite a lot of time passed in between my first watch and my second watch. And on the second time around, I was like, oh god, yeah, we've got to do this whole polar bear thing. Yeah. It seems really unnecessary.
I found that as well.
They didn't need the stakes to be this high at all. Walt could have just gone off with Vincent and gone missing for a while, and long enough for them to get really worried about him, and then they find him again and they're like, oh, don't ever leave me. And the CGI, I mean,
oh my god,
crimes against CGI were committed.
Awful Michael finds Locke and is like, where is he? And Locke says that I told Walt he couldn't be around me anymore, so they both go off in the jungle, they find Vincent's leash, and then they hear Walt screaming for help. There's a polar bear clawing at some trees, and Walt is trapped inside, much like Boone and Shannon were during the drug trip last week. And Walt is just standing behind the branches looking at this awful CGI polar bear's face. And then, why didn't they recruit Kate? Because Kate loves to climb. Who knows? But Michael and Locke climb up to the top of the tree.
They do some real balance beam shit on the tree branch.
They throw the knife down to Walt, and then lower Michael down on a rope made of some sort of tree bark, branches, ? And then Michael and Walt are both down there facing off this polar bear. They tie the rope back around Walt. Walt gets out, and then Michael is face to face with the bear and stabs the bear, and then the bear simply runs away.
What I was thinking in that moment was, oh, that's a shame. You'd have thought Locke at least would have been able to bring back some bear meat.
Yeah, I guess. Can you eat polar bears? Oh, the perils of eating polar bear. Oh no.
Oh no, you can't.
Affecting the central nervous system, it can cause hair loss. Well, Locke's got nothing to worry about.
It's not the worst thing that can happen to you on the island.
Extreme peeling of the skin.
Oh, yikes.
Everyone has got skin.
What is it about the polar bears that make them so unappetizing? Like, what do they contain?
A polar bear's liver contains enough vitamin A to kill as many as 52 adults.
I would simply not eat the polar bear's liver.
Oh, r/lost. Why didn't they skin the polar bear, give the fur blanket to Claire, eat the bear meat, use the non-edible parts as bait for other animals and fish, the bones for tools? Sawyer could wear the dried out head as a hat.
Someone's really put their thought into this. I appreciate that.
Anyway, the answer is no, you can't eat polar bear. Polar bear count? Is it worth keeping a count on the polar bears on the island?
Okay, you know what? Yeah, polar bear count. There have been canonically two polar bears on the island at this time.
At least one is dead. Vincent has run away, and Locke says, he found his way back to you once, Walt. He will again. Oh,
Yeah.
the good boy of our hearts.
The only thing I wanted to say, just to round off this whole section, the actor who plays Walt's name is Malcolm David Kelly. I was so struck, especially during the on-island segments, but in the whole Michael and Walt situation, what a good little actor he was. Child actors are so difficult, you know? There are so many of them that are so shit, and even the good ones often aren't that good. Like, they can't really hold their own against good adult actors. And Malcolm David Kelly gives us this incredibly nuanced and real performance, this like wide emotional spectrum, everything from being like a little shit just winding his dad up to like being in absolute fear and total distress when the polar bear's attacking him and he's like crying and shouting for his dad. I found it so convincing and I was so impressed. I was just like, God, I wish we could have had more of him on Lost, but I wish we could have seen more of him in general. Like, Malcolm David Kelly, come on the pod. Should we, is this a good time to play the newly baked Walt and Michael jingle?
Walt and Michael, together at long last, they'll break the cycle while they build the raft. Walt is special, that's for anyone to see. But what will happen if they set out on the sea? Oh, Walt, oh, Walt. Have you seen my boy? I'm looking for my boy, Walt.
Shall we move on to some subplots? Or the one
We
subplot?
simply must.
Okay. Our subplot for this episode is Charlie. Charlie and the Great Hunt for Claire's diary for reasons that I don't know if ever fully explained, but...
Because he fancies her and he wants to know what she said about him. It's that simple, isn't it? I think he could probably make a case of being like, there might be a clue in there somewhere about what happened to her, but when he does come at the end to say, oh, I've been reading her diaries, and Said and Kate give him some judgy side eye,
Yes.
and he's like, yeah, I know, I'm a fucking
know.
scumbag.
Yeah.
So I think it's pure self-interest that he's like, did she say anything about me? I must know.
I guess so. Anyway, Claire finds him looking through the bags, and he tells her that someone has taken the diary.
Must be Sawyer. And actually it was Sawyer.
She takes Charlie to see the man who steals everything. And they have this little exchange that is quite fun, I guess. Sawyer pretends he's read it, and he's like, oh, I'm getting really freaked out by the has-been pop star.
I thought it was a nice moment between Kate and Sawyer at the end of that scene where she's like, you didn't really read it, did you? And he's like, I just hadn't gotten around to it yet. It's
Yeah.
Like, I love that chemistry. The scene between Kate and Charlie, I just wanted to say, such incredible, beautiful lighting in that scene. It must have been sunrise, golden hour, because obviously the episode continues and it's day. But it was just this like glorious golden light washing over everything. Beautiful.
Yeah, that really stuck out to me as well, because almost everything we see on the island is either it is nighttime and it's dark, or it's daytime and everything is lit with ambient daylight. That's like one of the very few scenes we get that actually feels like, oh, it's like the changing of the time.
Later, when Charlie is like lugging the bags to the caves and Kate's helping him, or she's like, oh, I could have helped you with that. And Charlie says, I've had my share of manly encounters. Charlie canonically bisexual confirmed.
Well, but then during the fight with Sawyer, he tells Sawyer, "You hit like a ponce."
Oh, yeah. Internalized homophobia? Then there's the bit where now that he has the bags and the diary, we have this fabulous extended physical comedy scene with Dominic Monaghan deciding not to read the diary. Oh, but he wants to read the diary. Put it back, pick it up, put it down, pick it up. It goes on for so much longer than it has any right to do, and it really made me laugh.
I don't know how I felt about it, because I was a bit like, you know, it is the woman you have a crush on, and like that's fine. It's a bit funny you want to read it, but I was like, but also,
it's a massive invasion of privacy.
Be respectful, and because also they don't know an awful lot about each other's lives off the island, so he doesn't. I mean, obviously we haven't seen every conversation they've had, but does he know anything about the dad of the baby and what happened there? And maybe it's quite traumatic for her.
Well, he makes the comment later on about how like we barely even knew each other really, and yet I feel destroyed by this. So I think you're right. Like they haven't had that many in-depth conversations, and it is a massive, massive betrayal of her privacy to read her diary. I don't want to gloss over that by any means, but it was just a funny scene.
Anyway, he eventually does read the diary. Did you take note of what was written in her diary?
I mean, we predominantly see a couple of sentences that she wrote about Charlie. So when it was confirmed that he's just reading it to see what she wrote about him, I noted Charlie entering his stalker era.
Yes. And then finally, Charlie reads something else and starts calling out for Jack. And he finds Jack and Saeed and reads to them a passage where Claire is writing about her dreams. And in the dreams, she saw the Black Rock.
Is it a Black Rock or the Black Rock? We don't know.
Saeed remembers that Rousseau said her team returned from the Black Rock. And so Charlie thinks maybe this is where Claire was taken. Yeah,
I have to say, I always find Jack to be annoying when he's being like a downer and a buzzkill to everyone else's ideas. But in this scene, he's kind of right, because they're like, what if that's where she's been taken? What if that's the triangle on the map? And he's like, yeah, or maybe it's just not. Like, you have no reason to believe these things.
Well, then we cut to a tiny little scene of Boone and Locke looking in the jungle, whistling Locke's whistle that we remember he whistled when Vincent was lost last time. There's a rustling in the jungle, and who comes out of the jungle?
Claire.
It's Claire.
Quite a predictable reveal, I think.
Yes, Claire is looking shocked and confused, and we shall simply have to wait until next week to find out what that is about.
Big cliffhanger. Love it.
Some little miscellaneous things. As sort of referenced earlier, Saeed is showing Rousseau's maps to Jack.
Yeah, and he's like, I couldn't make sense of any of it, actually. And Shanna's like, apart from the fish songs, like, bitch, that didn't help us at all. But sure.
Well, what I thought when she said the fish song and Jack is looking very confused, I was like, oh, you two have an inside joke. How perfectly wonderful for you both.
Nice. But here Jack is once again being a downer, and he's like, well, you don't even know if this is a map of the island. It's like, what else would it fucking be? Anyway.
Do you have anything else to talk about?
I don't. We're done. You might be wondering, did this episode pass the Bechdel test? No, not at all. No attempt was made.
Well, the good news is that Claire is back, so now we have upped our female character. We've upped our female character count to 4.
You always forget about Rose. You say she's your favourite, and then you're like, she doesn't exist.
What I mean by that is we've upped our regular main cast female character count up to 4, because Rose has appeared in 2 episodes. Anyway, we've upped our female character count, so maybe going forward, we might see some women interacting. That would be nice, wouldn't it?
God forbid. All right, what else we got? Connor's Corner and Hot Ranking.
Okay.
If you want aviation or medical information, welcome to Connor's Corner.
Connor's Corner this week, he just wanted to comment and fact check on the sailing. Connor has some sailing experience as well. So in terms of the raft,
they haven't even started building the raft yet, and he's already fact checking the raft. Amazing.
Well, he's fact checking the concept of the plan of building a raft to escape. He said that you're actually better off to stay on the island because you are more likely to be seen with the debris on the island as opposed to being one raft in the ocean. So, like, if they're being seen from above, if they're flying above, because also he said that like the authorities would be trying to get in touch with islands within the certain patch of ocean that they're missing in. I tried to explain to him that they were 1,000 miles off course, nobody knows where they are, but he says that, well, they would still have a patch
it's a
that
mystical
they'd be
island,
looking
right?
at.
I mean,
And also there are very few completely uninhabited islands, so you'd be able to get in touch with people who live on the islands. And I was like, okay. He reckons you'd only be able to build a canoe which would be maybe 10 or 15 feet long. You wouldn't be able to build anything too big. Making it out of plane wreckage is bad, apparently, and it would be much better if it was out of wooden trees because they would be a lot stronger than the plane wreckage is. Saeed mentions shipping lanes, but you only actually get shipping lanes around busy waterways. For example, the British Channel. You don't just sail into the ocean and suddenly find a row of ships there. And it's bad because once you leave the island, they're going to have no fresh water, they're not going to have any food, but he just thinks it's a terrible, terrible plan, and has also posited a theory that perhaps you would just sail off one side and come straight back round to the other side of the island.
interesting theory.
An interesting theory. Anyway, that's what we have.
Hot ranking.
Hot can be physical, hot can be emotional. Hot is whatever we decide, and everyone's attractive, but who's top of the ranking? Who's the hottest one on this island?
I have a nomination for you. This week I am promoting Kate. She had really nice moments with Charlie, had a bit of a nice moment with Sawyer. She looked good while doing it. I just feel like it's time to give our girl the appreciation she deserves. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. Good for her. I might give it to Michael, actually. In the flashbacks, he was displaying some great energy when Susan was pregnant. I really loved his excitable nature there. And I also think we should be rewarding the emotional growth he shows by the end of the episode when he sits down and has more of an open and honest conversation with Walt about the cards and about his mum and how she kept them, but she wanted to give them to him. I think he did well. Good job, Michael.
Yeah. You know, emotional growth is hot. So
Exactly.
we like that on the pod.
Yeah.
My suggestion is that Kate jumps to the top because she's in position 5 at the moment.
It's a number 1.
I could also live with her being just underneath Sawyer, so position 3. I actually think it's time to bring Kate in and mix it up a bit. Sawyer and Saeed have been at the top for quite a while.
Okay.
And then my suggestion is that we move Michael up around 5 spaces, so that would put him where Kate is today, so just above Claire.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
Nice, nice, nice.
Well, that'll do us for this week. And don't forget, you can follow us on socials. We are on Instagram at Dharma Fish Biscuits Pod. We're on TikTok at Dharma Fish Biscuits. And if you have Lost-related questions or comments or feedback, you can email us directly at dharmafishbiscuitspod@gmail.com.
You can also leave us a review on the podcast listening application of your choice. We love reviews. We love 5 stars. We love Spotify comments. Most of all, we love it if you just tell a friend and spread the word about the pod.
Our next episode will be out in 2 weeks. We will be discussing episode 15, Homecoming. And until then, I'll see you in another life, Helen.
See you in another life, brother.